It is Friday the 13th, and not only is it Friday the 13th, but it's Friday the 13th of June, which is when the original Friday the 13th is set. So let's talk about Friday the 13th, because I love it. So the original Friday the 13th was made to capitalize on the success of John Carpenter's Halloween, and that isn't just me saying that, that's the people who made the film saying that. Like Victor Miller, the writer of Friday the 13th, has literally said that his pitch for the film was, Halloween is making a bunch of money at the box office, let's rip it off. And while certainly there are a lot of elements in Friday the 13th that borrow heavily from Halloween and that film's influences, there's enough, I think, in Friday the 13th to really kind of distinguish itself away from Halloween. And I think this movie, slightly more so than Halloween, really kind of cements the slasher genre and a lot of the tropes that would later develop in the slasher subgenre of horror. One thing in particular that Friday the 13th does a lot different to Halloween is there's a lot more emphasis on the gore and on the effects in Friday the 13th. See, Halloween is more of a slow burn kind of suspense type movie. Like, it's not, that first Halloween movie isn't particularly like gory. The sequels to Halloween for sure are gory. They became gorier as that franchise went on. But I think that first Halloween movie kind of isn't big on blood. It focuses much more on kind of the suspense and the atmosphere. And I love that for Halloween. But I think what's great is that Friday the 13th decided to kind of establish its own identity by focusing more kind of on the shock and the gore. And they did that by hiring Tom Savini, who, I mean, Tom Savini is just great. His effects are always awesome, and he does some fantastic work in that first Friday the 13th movie. We all remember the arrowhead going through Kevin Bacon's neck. We all remember the axe in the head. But one of my favourite kills in the movie is the first one that takes place in the present day portion of the film. That is Annie's death, where she gets her throat cut in the woods after hitching a ride to Camp Crystal Lake. I will say, Annie is like the one character in the film who I actually feel really bad for when she gets killed off. Like, because they spend the first 20 minutes, they basically do an Alfred Hitchcock Psycho type thing where they spend the first little bit of the film setting her up as the as kind of, you know, the main character, but then they just kill her off early. You know, that's a very Hitchcock move. In fact, again, they basically admit, Victor Miller has basically said, yeah, we copied that from Psycho. But yeah, I love for the first 15 minutes, we just kind of follow Annie around and just establish her as a character. And she just comes across as a really sweet, really likeable, nice girl. And then she gets killed. She doesn't even get to Crystal Lake. She gets murdered on the way. She doesn't even make it to the camp. She just gets murdered horribly before it happens, with a really cool effect from Tom Savini with the throat slit. I think it's a really interesting effect. But yeah, she's like the one character in this one. I'm like, oh, I liked Annie. She seemed like a nice girl. Come on. She just wanted to be a camp counselor and, you know, cook for some kids and some other counselors and just have a good time this summer. And now she's dead in the woods. It sucks. We're 15 minutes in and already I feel bad for one of the characters. But of course, the main portion of the film takes place at Camp Crystal Lake itself with some pretty fun characters. I kind of like the characters in this. They're not the most well-developed characters in the world. I mean, it's a slasher movie. Slasher films are not necessarily well known for, you know, giving us a lot of nuanced character depth, but they all seem like pretty fun characters. Of course, we got an early film role from Kevin Bacon in this movie. He's really good in this. All the actors in this are fine. Like, no one gives like a stellar standout performance, but they all do fairly well with the characters that they're given. And I like how much time we have kind of like establishing a bond between them, where we get to find out each character's characteristics, and we establish that bond and we see them kind of work together. And I love those little kind of moments you get. You know, there's the scene where there's the snake in the cabin and they've got to kind of catch and, you know, kill the snake. There's this thing where they're all kind of swimming on the docks, all that stuff. And while these are absolutely filler scenes, and some of them do go on for a little bit too long, I would say, that's like really my one negative for the film. I think some of the scenes go on a bit too long. But anyway, even the scenes that feel like filler scenes kind of work for me because they're establishing the bond between the characters. And that, you know, that pays off in a big way when they all start getting, you know, picked off by the killer. I also like quite a few of the little like supporting characters in this. I think they kind of add to the film as well. I really like you know, like the trucker who takes Annie halfway to Camp Crystal Lake. I think he's really good, like how he's trying to warn her away from going and stuff like that. He's only a small part, but I think he really helps kind of establish the tone when he's warning her not to go there. And of course, there's crazy old Ralph. I love crazy old Ralph. He's fantastic. He's one of the best parts in this. He's barely in the film, but he's so, so good in it. Just like, you're going to Camp Blood. It has a death curse. You won't come back. You're all doomed. I love him. He's so over the top, but I love him. His small appearance is so, so much fun. And every time I see his part in this movie, it just makes me smile. It's just so, so good. Ralph is really fun in this. But yeah, all these little characters that are in just one or two scenes, they're all really fun. I like a lot of them, except for the cop on the bike. I don't really like him. His scene is like one of the few scenes where I'm like, that seemed a bit pointless. Like, I get that it's to set up the fact that Ralph is at the camp, but like, wouldn't it be more of a shock, like, to the audience and to the cast if like Ralph just showed up and there wasn't a scene of a guy warning you that Ralph is going to show up? That's like the one scene in the film I don't like, is the scene with the cop on the bike. Nothing wrong with the actor. The actor does a fine job with it. I just don't know if that scene is necessary. But apart from that, I like all the little characters. I like all the bits around it. And I like the way the first half of the film builds not only the character dynamics of the main counselors, but also it sort of sets up all the little bits of the killer. But let's talk about the killer, because, oh boy, I love the stuff around the killer in Friday the 13th. So, first off, you've got the POV shots. Love that. That's fantastic. Again, that's something that is used by John Carpenter in Halloween as well. They do it a little bit more here, I think, in Friday the 13th, but I really like how they do it. I really like the POV stuff. It really adds to the creepy atmosphere, as does the music, because the music is only really a part of the film when you see that when the killer's around, either when the killer is lurking or when you see stuff from the POV of the killer. I really like that. You know, a lot of the scenes where it's just the characters without the killer, you get sort of the you know, it's mostly just there isn't really any music. I like that they use the music just mostly for the killer. They mostly just confine it to the killer. That's really cool. And of course, Manfredini's score is so, so good. Excellent work. Fantastic. Iconic horror score. I love it so, so much. The kills, again, Tom Savini's doing them. So, you know, you see Tom Savini's name under special effects makeup, you know you're in for a gnarly ride, because Tom Savini, he never disappoints when it comes to bringing the blood and the guts to horror movies. He's fantastic at it. He was coming off Dawn of the Dead when he did this movie, and that's a great film with phenomenal effects as well. And yeah, he does a fantastic job here. You got some iconic kills here. Again, you got the throat slit for Annie. You've got the axe in the head. You've got the arrow going through the neck of Kevin Bacon. All of it done so brilliantly, really, really well. Yeah, so the kills that we see, the kills that we see most of are great. Obviously, there's a few that are either off screen or they're like from the POV shot, so you just see someone like get stabbed and then and then it just cuts. Those kills are fine, but you watch a movie like this to see the gory effects, and again, Savini, he never disappoints on that front, and he does some fantastic work here. And let's talk about who the killer is, because oh my god, I love Betsy Palmer as Pamela Voorhees. Mrs. Voorhees, she's so, so good. She's only in this for like 15 minutes at the end, but she makes the most of that. You know, I love that for the first 2 or 3 minutes, she just comes across as like this sweet, kindly lady, and you know, she really can, and Alice trusts her, and Alice, you know, gives her a hug and she feels safe with her, and then you just slowly see it start to twist when she starts talking about the boy who drowned in the lake. You know, he should have been being supervised, but the counselors, they were too busy, you know, they were too busy having sex and all this, and you start to see her going a little bit mad, and then finally it's revealed that, you know, it was her son, Jason, that drowned in the lake, and she snaps and she goes crazy, and she's revealed as the killer, and it's so, so good. She is so good at playing evil, crazy Mrs. Voorhees. I love her in this movie, and she has one of the best deaths in this as well, with the slow-motion decapitation. Oh, mwah, perfect. Love it. No notes, fantastic stuff. And then the ending scene as well, the final scene. I love the final scene where you have like the gentle kind of soft happy music, and you see Alice having survived everything, you know, floating away in the boat, floating down the river, and you see the police arriving out. Okay, everything's safe, everything's calm, and then Jason jumps out of the lake and drags her under. Love that. That's fantastic. And I love that they kind of do it as a dream sequence as well, because it leaves it all ambiguous, like did it happen, did it not? So, you know, if the movie hadn't made any money and they didn't do any sequels, they could have just left it with that cool kind of ambiguous ending. But of course, it made loads of money. So they made a bunch of sequels with Jason promoted to, you know, main antagonist, main killer. But I love his appearance here. And what I love is the way they use the music in that scene, because this is a scene that scene kind of goes on almost too long, but it's done deliberately, because it kind of, even if you're expecting someone to jump out of the lake or a big jump scare to happen in that scene, it kind of goes on just long enough where if it's the first time you've seen the movie, you're like, is anything going to happen? Is anyone going to... Maybe it is just fine. Maybe this is just how they end the movie. But then up comes Jason just at the right moment, just to give you that final shock. I was watching the Crystal Lake Memories documentary about the Friday the 13th franchise, and Sean S. Cunningham, the director of the film, talks about how when they screened the film to audiences, when Jason jumped out of the lake, people like jumped up and ran out of the theatre, and I'm like, oh, I would love to have seen that. Oh, I love seeing like reactions to horror movies like that. That'd be so cool. I bet that was a sight to behold. And of course you have the ambiguous ending of like, we didn't find any boy in the lake, then he's still there. Ooh, you know, love it. I love this film, man. I mean, sure, it has its flaws. You know, the characters are a little bit generic and stereotypical. I mean, it is a slasher movie. You're not expecting, you know, great character depth, but you know, I understand why some people might not like the characters might think the characters are a little bit boring. Some of the scenes do go on maybe a little bit too long. I think the scene with the policeman is kind of pointless. I like everyone in that scene. I like the actor playing the cop in that, but I do think that scene is a little bit... that scene, I feel like you didn't really need that scene. That's just for me personally. But you know what? Despite those flaws, I still love this movie. It is iconic. This really, like, Halloween kind of started the slasher, like, subgenre, but this, I feel like Friday the 13th and the success of this movie really kind of launched it into mainstream popularity. And, you know, the slasher movie would basically dominate a lot of the 80s, and I think Friday the 13th was instrumental in that. I love this movie. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Whatever your thoughts are on the first Friday the 13th, let me know. We'll have a chat about it. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching. Bye.